Microsoft said Monday its board has approved a new share buyback program of up to $60 billion. The tech giant declared a quarterly dividend of 83 cents per share, a 10% increase over the previous quarter. The company said in July it would spend more this fiscal year on artificial intelligence infrastructure. It reported a rise of more than 3/4 in capital spending over the quarter ended June 30th, largely due to AI-related expenses. Big tech companies face investor pressure to show a payoff for the billions of dollars they've invested in infrastructure for the technology. Microsoft is one of the few top names that break out AI contributions in their quarterly earnings, as most firms are yet to see a big boost from the bots. Shares in the Windows maker rose marginally in aftermarket trade and are up about 15% so far this year. The company said it would hold its annual shareholders meeting on December 10th.
هذا الطباخ من مواد معاد تدويرها ممكن تصنيع مواد معاد تدويرها.
This cooker is made of recycled materials. It is very simple, made of wood from a wooden box, broken glass from the glass maker, and mirrors that focus the sun's rays on a tray or pot inside the cooker, which helps the cooking. The duration of cooking is the same as normal cooking. It can also fry. Everything that you'd think of, this cooker can do. The good thing about this device is that it's portable. It could be taken anywhere. Wherever I go, I take it with me. It works with solar energy, so I place it on rooftops. As you know, there are strikes, destruction and missiles passing by, which the cooker is subjected to. It's made of glass and mirrors, and it was hit with strikes several times. And it's a little bit broken, but it still works perfectly. This is the salty water in the device. The sun's rays fall on the calm water, heating it and evaporating it. Then these drops start to show, which means there's a condensation process. Can you see the drops? This is the condensation process of water. The fresh water coming out of the devices goes through 2 stages of purification with activated charcoal. This is the first stage, then the water goes down here. This is the second stage. Then it goes into this tank. The water in this tank is fresh and completely suitable for drinking, with no salt or pollutants.
I mean, I want to say it kind of snuck up on us. This wasn't it's one thing when it's a named hurricane and you're tracking it for 3 or 4 days and you're watching it come at you and the news is telling you all about this hurricane, everybody batten down the hatches. This was a real big surprise for us. But in the 22 years that we've been here, I would say this was absolutely, I can see the line on the wall in our store here. It's the highest the water's ever come. So it's crazy.
It's a once-in-a-century storm. We will recover. It's Carolina Beach. The locals will survive.
As the world emerges from its warmest Northern Hemisphere summer since records began, world leaders, business leaders, celebrities and activists are converging on New York for Climate Week. Organisers of the annual gathering say we are now in the age of urgency, and it's time to focus attention on the climate crisis and the need for greater investment in clean energy and net zero technologies. Climate Week coincides with the city's hosting of the yearly United Nations General Assembly, which brings heads of state and top government officials together with private sector leaders. The boreal summer of June to August this year blew past last summer, according to the Copernicus Climate Change Service, or C3S. That increases the likelihood that 2024 will outrank 2023 as the planet's warmest year on record. when global average temperatures soared to a sweltering 1.46 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. C3S warns that unless countries urgently reduce their planet heating emissions, extreme weather will, quote, only become more intense. Ahead of the Climate Week event and UN summit, Secretary-General Antonio Guterres told Reuters that the phase-out of fossil fuels is both necessary and inevitable.
We absolutely need to have a determined political will to reduce emissions drastically in this decade and to end this complete addiction to fossil fuels. The phase-out of fossil fuels is necessary, and I would say it is inevitable.
Greenhouse gas emissions from burning fossil fuels remain the main cause of climate change, which continued to contribute to disasters this past year. In Sudan, flooding from heavy rains in August affected more than 300,000 people and brought cholera to the already war-torn country. Elsewhere, scientists confirmed climate change is driving a severe ongoing drought in Europe and intensified the typhoons that tore through Southeast Asia this summer, leaving destruction and death in their wake. Climate Week organisers say they are aiming to convince and inspire hesitant companies and governments to dig deeper, to provide the finance and set the policies needed to shift to a low-carbon economy. The event has also become a focal point for protesters, eager to call out what they see as lawmaker and leader in action, alongside industry greenwashing.
We are going through a critical year. Last year was already the hottest year in the last 125,000 years. This year, several months have broken last year's records. We've seen floods not only in Brazil, but around the world. Droughts and a lot of fires here in the Amazon, in the Cerrado, in the Pantanal, and around the world. Climate change is no longer something to worry about in the future, 10 or 20 years from now. It's here, and it's here with much more force than we expected.
A fire at a natural gas liquid pipeline in La Porte, Texas, continued to burn for a second day Tuesday, raising fear of explosions among locals. The massive fire broke out Monday morning, knocking out power to thousands of homes and prompting a widespread evacuation of the area. No serious injuries were reported, and operating company Energy Transfer said the pipeline was isolated by midday for residual product to burn off. Still, the fire has left some in the area on edge.
Yes, I am scared for an explosion. Not scared, but just like more concerned, worried. But we still gotta keep doing what we gotta do.
Other residents say they are used to small plant explosions.
You know, we've had plant explosions and stuff like that over the years, small ones, you know, but that's just something that happens, and it's something, you know, we put up with. I've been retired since 2012. I worked at the chemical plants here. But stuff like this doesn't really bother me much.
The cause of the fire has not yet been determined. State industry regulator, the Texas Railroad Commission, said it would begin its investigation once emergency officials have deemed the scene safe. Energy Transfer said impacted landowners would be put up at area hotels until evacuation orders are lifted. A U.S. Senate bill to provide federal protections and expand insurance coverage for fertility treatments failed on Tuesday. Republicans voted against it, despite Donald Trump recently expressing support for the policy. The bill was defeated 51-44, missing the 60 votes needed, as most Republicans opposed it for the second time. Democrats hold a narrow 51-49 majority in the Senate. The bill's sponsor, Democratic Senator Tammy Duckworth, first sought a vote in February. That was after Alabama Supreme Court ruled that IVF embryos should be considered children, endangering access to the treatment.
Freedom to get reproductive care is at risk for millions of other women whose most desperate hope in the world is to have a little one of their own. Republicans only seem to care about protecting life when it supposedly consists of some cell in a medical lab freezer.
In August, Donald Trump said he would make the government or insurance cover IVF if elected, surprising some Republicans who find the treatment controversial.
We want to produce babies in this country, right? We want to produce babies for IVF, and I've been looking at it, and what we're going to do is for people that are using IVF, which is fertilization, the government is going to pay for it, or we're going to get or mandate your insurance company to pay for it, which is going to be great. We're going to do that.
Trump's campaign did not immediately respond to a request for comment on Tuesday.
I stayed overnight. Around midnight, I woke up because my child told me she felt something was going on. I wanted to calm her down a bit, that maybe it's just the wind, so that she doesn't panic. Then she looked through the window and saw lots of water, and it was a bit stressful for us.
Zimbabwean wildlife authorities have said they plan to cull 200 elephants to feed communities facing acute hunger, caused by the worst drought in 4 decades. Crops in southern Africa were wiped out by the El Niño-induced drought, impacting 68 million people and causing food shortages. Zimbabwe's cull, its first since 1988, will take place in 4 districts. It follows neighbouring Namibia's decision last month to cull 83 elephants and distribute the meat to people impacted by the drought. More than 200,000 elephants are estimated to live in a conservation area that spreads across Zimbabwe, Zambia, Botswana, Angola and Namibia. That makes the region home to one of the largest elephant populations worldwide. A spokesperson for the Zimbabwe Parks and Wildlife Authority said the culling is also part of the country's efforts to decongest its parks, adding that they can only sustain 55,000 elephants, but Zimbabwe is home to over 84,000.